Hey everybody, Coach Mark here. Before I dive into today's topic, make sure to find me over on Instagram as Coach Mark Estrabio. Also, I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full-time, and the odds are very good. I'd love to work with you. With that being said, let's get into it. So today I'm going to be sharing the story of my client Michelle, who actually debuted in Strongwoman this past weekend at her first ever competition, the Battle of the Brawny Babes, where she competed in the novice heavyweight class and took first place. So the competition consisted of 5 events. There was a log medley for time where you just had to hit all 3 logs as quickly as you could. Fastest time wins, whether it be fastest time on all 3 logs or fastest time on all 2. Obviously, if you got all 3 logs, it didn't matter your time if everyone else only got 2 reps on them. And the logs went 65, 85, and 105 pounds. And also worth mentioning, the first log was an 8-inch log, the latter 2 being 10-inch logs. Next up was a sandbag toss for reps. It was a 20-pound bag over a 10-foot tall bar. A squat for reps at 155 pounds, and the squat was done 2 pins, and they had it set so most lifters were hitting about parallel to slightly below parallel. Then a front hold for time, and the lifters had to keep their upper back and their caboose against a column. And then lastly, a keg series for both time and repetitions, in that you had to load the first 2, and then it was max reps with the final keg, and the kegs went 80, 100, and 125 pounds. Unfortunately, I do not have any footage of her from the competition as I was emceeing, so in between that and coaching her as I could, I unfortunately was not able to get any footage, but we do have some nice competition photos. So something, but anyways, what I'll be doing today is I'm going to talk about all of the events and breaking down how we trained for them as well as her results. Now, I will say Michelle objectively overperformed on every single event. She had better performances in competition than she did in training by a pretty sizable margin, and that's really what you want. That's a sign that your peak went well. It's something you'll hear about in the powerlifting side of the world. If your gym PRs are way higher than your competition PRs, you're probably not peaking correctly, or maybe your gym PRs are not to competition standards, so it's something worth thinking about. In general, her training is done 3 days a week, 1 with me, and then her 2 other days are commercial gym sessions, or maybe she's doing sort of a group fitness Metcon style class, kind of like CrossFit. Main thing I want to focus on are the results of the events, keynotes, and kind of discussing how we trained for the various events that we didn't have implement access, of which the majority of them we didn't have implement access. So the first event, as I mentioned earlier, was the log medley. She took first place in the event with a time of 36 seconds. 0.45. She was actually the only medley finisher, so this put her in a really good position starting off. Training-wise, when it came to the log, what we focused on here were performing multiple sub-max triples before ramping to a challenging single, and then usually an additional 2 to 3 sets at 80% of that top set. Now, on the days that we weren't working together in her Metcon class, they often would have them perform push presses, and one of the big things I told her to do, as she was able to in this class, was perform her push presses with a pause in the dip. Because that rack position on the log is a lot more futzy, spending just a bit more time in the bottom of a dip drive on the push press had a lot of carryover to her log. In addition, I also cued her to keep her head back. Now, normally with a barbell, a lot of people tend to push their head through as quickly as possible. This is also done on the log, and it's not a cue I'm a fan of, especially for the log. When you push your head through prematurely, what often happens is it causes your elbows to flare out, so it eliminates tricep drive and makes for a weaker press. I'm actually personally finding with a lot of my athletes, keeping the head back, even on a barbell or axle press, is coming in clutch for helping improve bar path and overall strength. So it's something worth experimenting with in that regard. And then also on screen here is a nice little 4-week wave on how you could train. And these loads are based off of a medley wherein the heaviest log, in her case, would represent 100%. So you'd perform a few sub-maximal triples, ramp to a heavy single, and then a couple back-off doubles or triples based off of your top set. This just allowed her to get very fluid with the log. That was my main focus here, was having her feel like she could enter a flow state and just go rep, 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 rather than hyper-fixating on, say, a 1-rep max type approach, especially because this was her first competition. And as a lot of us know, it's always the first rep of the first event that's the most nerve-wracking. So I knew once we had her in the show, we were good to go. The second event was the sandbag toss, where she actually took a 3-way tie for first place with 5 repetitions. We did not have implement access for this, so we did a lot of stuff such as double kettlebell high pulls, as well as 1-arm kettlebell snatches, just to build triple extension and a sense of timing. High pulls, muscle and power snatches with a barbell, and box jumps are good boilerplate suggestions to help build the explosive triple extension you need to be successful in this event. Contrast sets are one I really like. Something such as 3 to 5 snatch grip high pulls directly into 3 to 5 double kettlebell snatches. That'll have a lot of transference. And even if you do have access to throwing sandbags, doing something such as high pulls into Some sandbag throws would be a great way to help build that explosive power if you find you aren't able to get the bag high enough over the bar. Whereas maybe you're getting it high but you're shooting it really far, so then you have to chase it down. That's more of a skill development issue wherein you simply need more practice with the implement itself and to work on your timing. Our third event was the squat for repetitions, where she tied for first place with 21 reps performed. Gross. It's way too many reps. So the squat was done to pins here, and so the primary focus when we worked together on this event was just to get her comfortable in the 5 to 8 rep range with a sub 30-second time for those initial 5 to 8 repetitions. For rep fests like this, I think something such as timed sets with competition weight can be very viable, and you'll see on screen what that might look like. You'd hit an initial set of 5, and then a 30-second max rep set at 85 to 90% in week 1. In week 2, we had 5 seconds, go a little heavier. In week 3, we had another 5 seconds, go a little heavier. And then in week 4, we're at competition weight for 45 seconds. This really lets you scale how you're going to do comp day thereof. Again, this is designed around those super high rep type competitions where you know you're going to be exceeding, say, 12 reps. The fourth event was the front hold for time. She took second place here with a time of 1 minute and 1 second. A big thing we did here were front raises with intra-set pauses coupled with a longer hold to failure on a separate day. And how that might look, for example, if we're doing the front raises, is something like in week 1, 3 sets of 12 to 15 with a 5 count hold on reps 1, 5, and 10. Week 2, 4 sets of 10 to 12 with a 3 to 5 count hold on reps 1, 5, and 8. And then in week 3, it's 3 sets of 8 to 10, repeating the holds from week 1. And then in week 4, 3 to 5 count on hold on reps 1, 5, and 8. Ultimately, the idea here is you try to go a little bit heavier every week or increase the overall duration of those holds on those front raises. It's a really good basic approach, and the reason I like it here is because we're not only going to strengthen the front delts concentrically, but isometrically as well, which is very important for that front hold. But just spamming front holds isometric constantly, I find that it actually tends to beat people's joints up really badly, and something I've noticed is bicep tendon fatigue. So this is a good approach that balances the two, doing something like these holds once a week with the front raises, and then another day of the week where you actually just plain go heavy and actually try to do competition holds, slowly ramping up over time. The final event was the keg medley, with the final keg being done for max repetitions, and here she tied for first with 9 total reps. This is another one we didn't really have implement access for, so we primarily trained this via log cleans, just having her clean that log very aggressively, alongside Zercher triple extensions and Zercher good mornings. The Zercher good morning is one of those movements that I think is incredibly underrated, and here's a nice sample 4-week wave you can run on that Zercher good morning. Week 1, work to a heavy 10, and then 90% for 3 rounds of 10. Week 2, 4 sets of 6 to 8 with whatever you hit in week 1. Week 3, ramp to an 8RM, drop down to 90% for 3 by 8, and then in week 4, 4 by 4 to 6 at the 8RM load. This is going to get you a lot of practice with that, and it's going to build a lot of that isometric strength, which is going to be very valuable for you on something like a keg load, which requires a lot of that isometric upper back strength with slightly bent elbows. Zercher good mornings, again, incredibly underrated. They're one of those movements that I think a lot of us would benefit from training on a more consistent basis, especially for loading events when you do not have implement access. So with her first competition done and dusted, Michelle did really well. Her worst finish in the competition was second place in one of the events. She had a 3-point lead by the end of the day, so very proud of her, needless to say, very excited for what comes next. Of course, she is a bit of a victim of her own success because now she's going to be in the open category, so that means we got to double down on her efforts. But Michelle, well done. And thank you all so much for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below in the comments section. The best ones are ones I will turn into topic videos down the road. And again, I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full-time. Odds are good. I'd love to work with you. But with that being said, I'll see you folks next time.